surface, walking round as the rich are underground. On the surface, walking round as the rich are underground. On the surface, walking round as the rich are underground.
Putin's henchmen warned that Ukraine conflict could turn into all-out nuclear war. It said Mad Vlad Putin's henchmen have fired a warning shot that the UKR conflict could turn into a full-scale nuclear war. They made the stark comments after the US gave the go-ahead for Kiev to kick off drone strikes into Russia. It said America had warned against the move over fears that it would spark the war spreading between Russia and NATO. It says one source in Putin circles said that this is playing with fire, risking full-scale war, which could easily go nuclear. It says another added, who will now give Moscow the green light for strikes against UKR decision-making centers? Of course, many not. We're going to talk about this and much more tonight. Of course, this is, just one of his cronies and possibly Ganda. We'll talk about that, but we'll talk about the very serious things that are actually going on right now in just a moment. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Before we start, just a quick word from our sponsor. Of course, we're going to be talking about the 4K night vision goggles. Of course, if you haven't seen these before, make sure to go check them out. There was a time when night vision was only reserved for the military and law enforcement, but fortunately for us, high-quality consumer night vision has never been more affordable than now. A favorite choice for the Night Watch Pros. Night Watch Pros are perfect for night hunting, watching wildlife, scenic viewing, surveillance, patrol detection, and home protection in complete darkness. They also double as a video camera and the ability to rewind, replay, and save your footage on the device in stunning clarity. Get it for 60% off for a limited time now by going to www.nightwatchpro.com or simply click the link down below. That will also actually support us, and you'll be getting a huge discount, so check them out now. All right, we're going to go right back into the news, and again, we have a ton to cover. Before we do, I just want to remind you, if you are new here, remember you can always go to our website, marfooglenews.com, to find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to show you here today. Now with this, there's some special stuff on today's show because obviously there's a lot going on. We are going to be doing this all live, so if you do want to catch up, go over to the website, marfooglenews.com / today's show, which all you have to do is click on this thumbnail, and you'll see that every single article, tweet, video, picture, document is there. At the very bottom, you'll see that we actually have an overflow web content section. That is where we put all of the stuff that could not fit into a 2-hour time period. Now, there's also some other great stuff to check out, of course, over on marfooglenews.com / friends. So go check that out as well. There's tons of great creators, and make sure to meet the team. All right, let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So just a reminder, to go back to that first story, obviously this is one of the circle, and it could be, so do we know where, did they put a name on this henchman? And of course they say a lot of things like this, and a lot of people get freaked out. They say all-out nuclear war. I think that much before that we would get into a conventional conflict with Vlad, but obviously, nuclear is something that is everybody thinks is the end of the world if we go to World War III. I believe that World War III won't be nuclear, at least at the beginning, and if it ever went nuclear, that would be last resort. What did you think about them putting this kind of stuff out right now? Do you think it's just to scare people?
Well, of course, the very first line calls Vlad mad. So Mad Vlad, they love to use that line. No, they don't name the henchman. And then they also make a statement in here specifically about the U.S. giving the go-ahead for drone strikes into Vlad's territory. So, or into Russia specifically. I think that's actually been that's a controversial statement. I think a lot of people have said, or at least the U.S. has come out and said, "Hey, we didn't actually say that." But on the flip side, you could certainly say they did by giving them equipment that would do such a thing. We've also seen that some of that equipment has been, I guess, I want to say disabled, but it's been modified to prevent it from going certain distances as well. So on one hand, we've done, we've been sort of semi-responsible, if you want to call it that. But on the other hand, I'm sure on Vlad's position that we're being irresponsible by giving them equipment.
Someone said that WW3 will be drones and bots. I think so too, and I like I've always said that WW3 will be like it will not be like any other conflict we've ever been in. Just look at China and their carriers. They have drone carriers that are completely autonomous. They can literally send almost a 400-foot ship off on its own without a crew, and then from there deploy lethal drones to fly and then hit targets. That's pretty nuts. And I don't even think, I don't think we have a drone carrier. Our own Pentagon has said that China is ahead in AI and in autonomous technology, which is absolutely nuts. You might want to think about the guys that are contracted doing autonomous vehicles that are now producing half their vehicles over there. But again, maybe he's handing them some information. I don't know. But the Pentagon officer that ended up leaving and said on his way out, saying, I basically don't want blood on my hands. This is really bad. Once China got ahead in AI, he said it's the kind of category of information that once you get ahead in, it's almost impossible to catch up or to ever be ahead of, because it's something that it's always building and building on top of the last step. They're always ahead. We're always going to be behind, according to him. When you have this conflict, the whole world is looking at this, and it's NATO versus Vlad, and people say that these are all, this is all the narrative, right? Either way, I guess more people argue about who is actually behind this, and, if this is a circus or a sideshow, and it could be. I want to point out that I've never, ever tried to say that, one thing is true or this is not. I think that myself and many of my peers, we continue to question every piece of information that's coming out. And I also want to point out, I grew up with, I guess it's because I didn't really have parents when I was growing up. What is so crazy is nowadays, people are so divided and torn apart. But one thing I want people to realize is that person next to you, or the person that you dislike, it's probably because you were raised differently, whatever it may be. One thing that people don't get is how people were raised and the parents they had. People absorb a lot of what they had from their parents. And there's reasons why people are the way they are. And you meet somebody that just does not click with you, and you don't get past the first impression of them because you can't. There's something about them that you just don't like. And, it's something where I said the other day on Twitter that, my best friends, I hated my best friends until I got to know them. And that's because once you get past some of the things that you're bugged by, you most likely have a ton in common with almost everybody here. In fact, all of our chat, it's like we all disagree. Every one of us, because everyone has different theories of what is going on with this conflict. But I want to point out that more so the thing for us to do is not to get an absolute answer of what is going on, because that's impossible. Anybody that pretends like they know exactly what is going on, no matter what theory or road they've gone down, nobody knows exactly what is going on here. But we do know that no matter what happens, if one of these big events happen, it's going to affect us all. So this is news from a prepper standpoint. No matter if it goes down, if you can imagine those fiber optic lights that have a base, and the fiber optics go out into 1,000 different directions, and the light carries with it all over the place. Imagine that the theories are like that. It could go one of 1,000 ways. And if we can prepare and go back towards the base and prepare for any of them, then that's what we're trying to do here. I firmly believe we are headed into really rough times, and that's not to scare people. It's not to make people afraid. It's to let people know my opinion. People are here because they want my opinion, Dex's opinions, and then the rest of the Fugel family's opinion. When we cover stuff like this, I hope that, obviously the chat Everybody's going to be talking about their own theories about this. There are people that do not believe in space, or there are people that believe that there is a planet coming at us. There are all sorts of different thoughts about every last aspect. And what I have noticed over the last 5 years, it's really gotten to the point where there's a lot of hypocritical thinking, a lot of hypocrites out there that just they're pointing out, they say something that is happening on the left, oh, if you believe this, then you're automatically a racist, right? Well, isn't the same thing on the right side? When somebody disagrees with you, they are a government shill or they're a Fed. That's what happens in our community. We call a bunch of names, we make a bunch of accusations without proof. You are guilty until proven innocent. And I hope that both sides start looking at this and realize that it doesn't matter what the MSM is saying right now. It matters that something bad is coming our way, and we can all see that much. We can see the basic structure of something really horrible coming our way, whether it's the official narrative or whether it's what's under the narrative. We have, by 2030, our entire lives being rearranged and changed. We have our money changing, the amount that we are tracked and traced, the amount that we are going to be living our lives as we are right now is about to change. And that's what people need to be getting clear through their head, less about like, oh, well, this is this and this and that. We should be focusing on how do we prepare for any of those events. If what's his face is right or what's his face is right, how can we meet in the middle and say, okay, if we prepare for this, we're going to be prepared for both of those outcomes, because nobody is right now. And that's on purpose, because they're sharing a lot of information that is incorrect in different ways. So all of us are confused. And that includes myself. Even the higher up military folks that are in our groups, they have solid information, and they are saying that keeps changing, that their superiors keep changing things on a daily notice. Like, it's just boom, one day it's this, and then the next it's something else. So everyone needs to realize that CV wasn't the last big event that's going to happen to us, and that's what we want to point out. Like, it's getting down to the wire. It is getting to the point where I don't think most people can deny that it's because we're humans, we adapt. CV and everything that just happened, we just kind of adapted and kept it going. Meanwhile, just like in 2001, after that happened, our lives changed dramatically, but on a slower pace. All of a sudden, we started getting watched. They put in all of these new rules. They put in the Patriot Act. They put in all this kind of stuff. They're doing the same thing now, and they are saying it's for protection. We don't know. But one thing we do know is our lives are changing dramatically, and we're sitting here arguing with each other. As far as this goes, we don't know what to believe about Vlad and everything else that's going on here, but it's getting worse, and that's for sure. And then we're going to go back to Vlad and, of course, UKR and everything else in just a moment. First off, though, U.S. scientists reach a long-awaited nuclear fusion breakthrough, source says. I've covered a lot of weird things over the last couple of weeks, and it says for the first time ever, U.S. scientists at the National Ignition Facility at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California successfully produced a nuclear fusion reaction resulting in a net energy gain. A source familiar with the project confirmed to CNN. It says the U.S. Department of Energy is expected to officially announce the breakthrough on Tuesday. The result of the experiment is a massive step in decades-long quest to unleash the infinite source of clean energy that could help the dependence and end dependence on fossil fuels. Do you guys realize what is happening here? Dex, this is what many people have thought has been around for a long time. It's clean, free energy. Why would they do that when they're making trillions of dollars on oil and fossil fuels and everything else? I wonder, why, if there was a cure for things, would they actually give it to us? Because they're making billions of dollars and $10,000 pills. Why would they do these things unless it won't matter in the future? Go ahead, Dex.
Well, it certainly seems like they're doing it the hard way. If we believe that they've had this before, and when I say this, some version of free energy, we've talked a lot about it. There's a lot of theories out there that it was once proven, but then locked away because of the oil industry. But what they've accomplished, if they've actually accomplished this, it's not easy. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to have free energy sitting in the palm of your hand and you're going to be using it. This is a very large system designed to basically combine two atoms together and then take the output of that, which produces a bunch of extra, not elements, but extra results that come off, and then they strike a plate, and that plate has to withstand something like 10 times the core of the sun, something like 150 million degrees Celsius. It has to be able to withstand all of that heat, and then take that heat and use it to boil water, which then creates steam, which then creates energy from a turbine. And the process in which the amount of energy they spend to make this happen, they have to be able to get more energy back in return. So it's, at the scientific level, it's huge. I mean, it's a major breakthrough. They've been talking about it for decades. They've been trying to prove that they can actually fuse atoms together, and from doing that, generate this massive amount of heat that they can then use and then harness that and turn it into energy. So if this comes out, which they're rumoring now it's going to come out and say it's actually happened. I think the UK had did it for about 5 seconds. But they're saying now this may be a little bit more significant. But if this comes out, it's a big step. But I guess the point being is, if we feel like if we have our suspicions that they being the powers that be have had this type of technology or something equivalent to this free energy, this certainly is the hard way of going about it. But if they do accomplish this, it's a big deal from a scientific standpoint. But again, it's not going to be something you're going to have in your house anytime soon. This is a huge undertaking for them to actually produce it. But it does mean that if they can scale it and reproduce it and do it over and over again, you'll probably see energy plants, much like you've seen, nuclear plants creating energy. We might see these fusion plants being built that create electricity that go into the grid for little to no cost outside of the overall equipment and manpower it takes to run it.
Nothing is free, and several Foogle fam members pointed that out. Exactly right. How is it going to be free? It's not going to be free for us. Something else, if this was the case, and this is why people like Elon Musk are saying in the future, your best bet and your dream, your American dream, will to have a universal income, because most likely you'll need one. In fact, all of us will. We'll be little drones. We'll be walking around with Neuralinks and doing the bidding. I assume that that's what some people's goals are. But when you look at it and you look at how they are replacing everything with AI and bots without a single care about how this is going to affect jobs and how they don't see our society working the way that it is now. You have to understand, the people at the very top are looking at this and saying, this is not how the world is going to work. And I bet you at the very top, they believe that some of us, or if a lot of us just say, weren't here, it might actually be better for society and for civilization in general, right? If a lot of the people that are kind of suckling at the teat, right, were not here, then it would be a better place. You have to understand, when it gets to a certain level, it's almost in every case where they believe people like you and I are basically the stuff that they step in if they accidentally walk out their house and step in a yard of, dung. That's what they think of us. And if you have never talked to somebody who is uber rich and really seen the behind the scenes on that, then I believe there are very few that are up on this level. And I'm not talking about rich like your friend who has a couple $1 million or something. We're talking about billionaires. They do not see the world the same, and they wouldn't be there unless they did. I'm telling you, these people do not at all respect human life as it is. They say it needs to change. This whole world needs to be like this. And then we'll save Earth, we'll save this. And I think that they actually think that they're doing something amazing, that they are, making the decisions for us of what is best for our civilization and for our species, right? Because if you look at what they're doing right now, it's pretty nuts. You have Elon and all these people, every rich person in that top 5 building rockets to get off the planet. Why? I keep asking that question, and I'm going to keep asking that question until we get a solid answer. And by the way, the main answer that they bring back is, actually, humans have a better chance of survival if we're interplanetary. I mean, that's straight up an answer that they're giving us publicly. And a lot of people say, well, it's for money. It's got to be about money. That's what people are saying. We don't know. And then Orlando Airport could run out of fuel Sunday night. Here's what travelers should know. Dex, are they actually going to run out of fuel? Or they're basically saying that this is an extension of what we've been covering over the last month. What do you think is going to happen here?
That's a great question. There is a shortage of fuel in Orlando, apparently, that is affecting the airline or affecting the airport. It'll be interesting to see if this turns into more of a nationwide thing or if it's just an acute one-time problem. But it is such a big deal. So this was announced on Sunday. They're saying it's going to last potentially through Tuesday based on the supplies they expect to come in and the amount of usage they have. But it's so bad, they're telling other airlines that fly, that a lot of these airlines will do routes in and out of Orlando, back and forth to one town in America, over and over again during the day. They're telling those planes to leave with enough fuel to come back so that they don't have to fuel up in Orlando. And then some international flights that are leaving from Orlando or coming in are actually stopping in or making a stop in another location, whether it be Miami or another airfield, to actually fuel up because they can't fuel up in Orlando.
As far as with the fuel situation, here's what I see, and this goes with what is happening right now with the all-out nuclear war. As I said, a couple weeks ago, it was really calm, and there was nothing being covered. And it's so funny how fast people will go from freaking out about World War III to then going, oh, it's all, it's all BS. All it takes is one big news story to get people flipped back on. It's like there's a light switch that gets turned on in people where they're freaked out or if they're not. And from our standpoint, you should be looking at this as a steady. It shouldn't be a roller coaster. You should always be preparing for stuff that's bad that's coming. And also, don't completely freak out when it's really bad, and don't completely think it's okay when it's just not, or when it is. You have to be in the middle. That's why most of the people that have been here for 5 years are desensitized to a lot of the scary stuff, because they as far as if you expect this stuff to happen, then you're not so much worried about it because you've prepared and you've thought ahead. All of these things that we predicted 5, 6, 7 years ago, all of those things are now true. So if we're looking at the future and saying, hey, by 2025, there's going to be a full-blown conflict, if not, it began, everybody's going to remember the day that they invaded UKR. That could have been the start of a long-term thing that in the history books, that was the start of how it all started unfolding. We don't know, but we do know that the writing is on the wall. As far as fuel goes, this is why, again, people are stocking up and getting ready for anything. Let's see here. And then some believe it's on purpose. And then humans in 2100 could be ageless bionic hybrids with downloadable brains as they transform into Elon Musk style cyborgs. And so this is something that people have thought is science fiction. It's been something that's in the movies. It's something that people do not care about. And I can just tell by if I'm covering something like this, if it is on the thumbnail, people don't care. They think of it as down the road. Everybody thinks if they can kick the can down the road, then they don't care about it until it's here. Well, it is here. And as far as Neuralink being tested and all of this, we're talking about in the next year, they're going to be rolling out the stuff. In the next 5 years, this is going to happen. And as far as ageless and whatever else, they're doing genome editing, they're doing DNA editing, they're doing all sorts of stuff. But at what cost? I bet you the richest folks in the world will be ageless, and this is straight out of a Black Mirror episode or a straight-up sci-fi series where the rich and the uber elite, they will have the ability to do this, but this is like Elysium. This is straight up. Dex, have you seen Elysium with Matt Damon? This is,
oh, yes.
That movie is happening. Is this not nuts?
Well, yeah, it is. And when you pause to think about all the things we do and have done to the human body, we really just scratched the surface. And when you think about how technology advances so quickly and rapidly, it exponentially grows, especially in the electronic technical side of the world. when you start to think about the things that we've done to the human body, I could only imagine they're talking about 2100. They're basically saying in 100 years, that's a couple generations that we're going to see this. But, we already do things to improve appearance. We already do things to put, artificial limbs in, or even so repair broken limbs with other, metal and things like that. So thinking that we would have, strength boosting prosthetics, or having chips in our brain that are able to download information and upload information and communicate with other people, and not have to have a cell phone anymore because it's all just right in your brain. We already improve vision. We already do laser vision on eyes to improve them. There's no reason to think that won't improve to become even better, where you actually can see further or clearer or do other things. So all of these different things that we know the scientific community and the tech community are doing, it shouldn't be a shock to think that we might actually see humans looking like this, or at least having a lot of advanced technology put into them, or be a product of some form of advanced technology, especially as the next 50 to 100 years comes before us.
And just in the last couple of years, you've seen huge advancements as far as our phone goes. Our phones now have changed life on Earth. I mean, it's really that dramatic. When you take the phones that, of course, 20 years ago, people weren't walking around staring at their phones. If anything, they were a utility. You used them to call somebody. That was a huge convenience. I mean, going back to pagers, and then before, the two ways that we texted and stuff, this was all advanced. In my lifetime, it's gone from nobody had a cell phone to now every single person is attached at the hip to their phone. Now people do everything with their phone. They even pay. They do all of these different things. It has dramatically changed, and we don't even know what the long-term effects of this. We obviously know that these signals, and some of the more powerful ones, are not good for you. But we also know that as far as the mental capacity of having a phone from very young, as far as the kids nowadays, if you haven't met a teenager nowadays, it's very, very rare. I only have one friend that does zero screen time whatsoever. And I will tell you this, his kids are the best kids in the world. His kids are absolutely amazing kids. I mean, they're not perfect. There's no kid that is. But you can tell the two of them, the brother and sister, out from a whole party. And especially we had a kids party where everybody's screaming, yelling. These kids were the most respectful kids I've ever seen. Then you have all of the other kids. And then all the kids that get on their phone, they do Roblox, they do all this. Now teenagers can't be more than 5 feet away from a plug. It's an addiction. People are plugged in. Now, as far as the advancement in technology, look at how fast this has happened. Now they have flexible screens and this and that, and they're talking about, making these flexible screens that will be able to go on your arm like a band. This is all short term. In the very, very short long term, in the next couple of years, we're talking about integrating this into contacts. They already advanced in the contact lenses, being able to have a phone implanted in a device on you that would be able to load up your cell phone on your contact lenses. They already have screens for this. And then, of course, VR and AR. People think Zuckerberg is dumb for investing in this stuff. This stuff is the future. And if we survive through whatever conflict is coming, this is going to be our next 5 years. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, and not just the contacts. Think about when they actually get to the point of which having full connectivity to the brain, there's no reason for them to actually give you a visual representation of information that has to be interpreted through your eyes, which is a slow process into your brain. They could actually paint the entire picture in real time, 1000K resolution, whatever you want, in your brain without your eyes even using it. So you could literally not even have eyes and be able to operate. And that's kind of a scary thought when we get to that level of integration. And then here's the other thing to think about. They're talking about people living longer, and certainly they spend a great deal of time trying to increase the lifespan of humans. But imagine what would happen if tomorrow everyone lived to be 200 or 300 years in age. What would happen with the population? What would happen with Earth? What would happen with everything around us? those are things that we've never factored in. And it could literally happen. They could literally, or they may already have it, the ability to increase lifespan by a greater amount of time. And maybe they're holding it back. Or if they did it, what would happen? What would be the ramifications of something like that? That's huge. That would be a massive change to everyone around us.
And I apologize about that. The Stream Deck, I accidentally hit a button. So as far as this goes, this is something scary. And I think that the option for the people that don't want to get Neuralink, they're going to get the contacts and they're going to get all of this other, VR and AR stuff. This is something that is coming faster and faster and faster, and we don't know what the end result will be. And then also, if people are going to live 300 years, do you think that they're going to let everybody live 300 years? Do you think that this is going to be something that's subsidized and they're going to allow the people that are, low income or on welfare? Do you think they're going to have them live 300 years on welfare? I'm just being real. Do you think that anybody, even middle class, is going to be able to get this ability to live forever? I mean, this is straight out of sci-fi, and it is something that they are actively working on. Some believe we won't get there, though, because the world will crumble before this happens, or we'll lose all power in a grid-down scenario. It is very doom and gloomy, but it is also the world we live in right now. U.S. Air Force carries out first fully successful test of an air-launched hypersonic missile. So over the last few years, we've talked about how Vlad, first did that speech where he said that he had all of these different weapons, 6 weapons, in fact. It was 6 highly advanced weapons, and any one of those were absolutely scary. And he talked about these, and he talked about the hypersonics. Well, technically, the hypersonics that they're talking about, not only are they hypersonic speeds, which we've had hypersonic speed missiles for a long time, they're talking about hypersonic and maneuverable. That's the difference between the new ones and the old ones, being able to maneuver them while they are going hypersonic speeds. That was a huge feat. Meanwhile, after they showed or said that they had them, the U.S. actually didn't, or that's what we think. A lot of people, when for said that Vlad and Xi were years ahead on this kind of stuff, especially Vlad. Meanwhile, people were saying, well, the U.S. probably has it, they just haven't made it public. Well, they have done multiple tests, and the public tests have failed, or at least that's what they're telling us. It says that this one was the first successful test of its complete air-launched hypersonic missile, the Air Force said in a statement, a program that had previously suffered a series of setbacks because of testing failures. It says a full prototype of the air-launched rapid response weapon known as Arrow was launched from a B-52 off the coast of California on Friday. The AGM-183A missile achieved hypersonic speeds more than 5 times the speed of sound, and it detonated in the terminal area, the 96th Test Wing said. It said all of the objectives of the test were met, according to the Air Force. The Arrow is a boost glide missile that uses a booster rocket to accelerate a projectile to hypersonic speeds. A glide vehicle then separates from the booster and uses inertia to travel to its targets at hypersonic speeds. So this is not, I believe the actual missile is not hypersonic, but then it ends up launching a second projectile that does go hypersonic. What's even freakier is that China said that it successfully tested a hypersonic, essentially a hypersonic speed vehicle that also launched a hypersonic object. Do you remember that, Dex? When China said that actually our Pentagon said that they believed they had this. Remember when they launched?
Yeah, they
something?
monitored that hypersonic glide vehicle, and then they detected that it had launched something during its hypersonic flight, and that something, they don't know what it was, but they detected that they assume it was something that was intentional, that had left that vehicle at hypersonic speeds.
So being able to launch something that's hypersonic and then go to a target in a matter of minutes and then launch a second one that's able to go somewhere else, that was pretty terrifying. It says this test was the first of the entire system known as the all-up round test. It says previous launches focused on the booster rocket. The Arrow missile suffered a series of failures in testing last year, forcing the Air Force to delay the project. The Air Force described the failures as anomalies. I remember when Elon Musk called the exploding man capsule, they tested that and it just blew up, and they said, oh, we had a slight anomaly. And then the video came out that it was the whole pod just burst into flames, into smithereens. It was pretty funny, actually. Let's see here. Thank you, by the way, thank you everybody that has popped in already. Thank you for everybody that comes to our little show here. I appreciate you. And thank you everybody that supports independent. LAPD SWAT says DARPA, USSF, and USAF will build starships for colonization near light speed. That was LAPD SWAT. Thank you. And again, as far as DARPA, USSF, and USAF building starships, I mean, look at what they're doing right now with Starshield. Here I Am, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's awesome. And then Dana Cessna Grammy says, Merry Christmas and God bless and protect you all this coming new year. We need God now. I believe it's Dana. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yes, we do. Kay Holmes, good evening. Let's get to the Fooglery started. Well, thank you. And that was popped in before the show even started. Thank you, Crazy L. I believe I missed you along with Kay Holmes, Vic, Kenny Crowder, Kay Holmes again, and Carol McLean last show. We had some technical difficulties, so thank you. All right, and then before we move on, we're going to talk about Japan. I have been watching Japan since, about 2 years ago, and I would say now, probably 6-7 months ago, I was told to specifically watch Japan by military Fugel members. This is something that is going to go on. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I do want to remind you, if you have not already, make sure to get yourself some extra food. We give you a resource so you are able to do it in bulk and so it lasts a long time. If you haven't already, go to marfooglenews.com/prep and make sure to go check out their line of long-term survival food. It's powered through My Patriot Supply. They have supplies all the way from just a single MRE to a 3-month supply and more. The 3-month supply right now is $200 off of an already reduced price. It is actually the lowest price it's been since we've been with My Patriot Supply over 3 years. Again, make sure to go check them out because they have amazing deals as far as this is an affordable way to get a large amount of food all in one go for not that much. When you divide the 3-month, that is a really great deal. The more you buy, the more you save. They also have $70 off on the 1-month supply. Make sure to go over and use our code. You'll not only get that discount, but you'll be helping our little channel. We are completely independent, and a lot of folks don't realize that. We don't have a multi-channel network to protect us. We don't have a team. We don't have a team of lawyers. We have our mods. We have Dex and I, and that is it. We have the Fugel fam backing us up. So you guys are our backbone. Nobody likes to see ads and things. Nobody likes affiliates. So let's just be honest about it. But one thing about this is every product that we do, we make sure that we believe it will either help somebody, save a life, make their life easier in a disaster, or make your life easier, of course, in any kind of bad, event. As far as this goes, there are competitors that are 2-3 times as much. The great thing about the My Patriot Supply is the affordability. I think if it was a dream world, you would not only have My Patriot Supply, but you would have other different sets of food, and you would be doing it yourself. Most people, though, don't have time. They're working a ton, and they can't, and they don't have the money to buy a freeze dryer and freeze-dried foods. Those things can range up to $4,000, $5,000. So I just want to point out, I understand nobody likes affiliates. Nobody likes commercials. Those commercials on TV that you see usually are a huge percentage of TV. We tried to keep it, I think, under 8% of a 2-hour show that we do these, but these help support us. Now, this is a little bit longer because I do want to explain. We are trying to expand. We are trying to actually bring more people on. I would love to make this bigger. We have had setback after setback with the algorithms, with the different rule changes and everything else. If you guys help us, I promise in the end, we will help back and we will try to help the community back. We already do a lot of stuff and we don't sit there and brag about it. We appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate the people that have been with me since day one, because the overall goal of this is to make sure that people are prepared. That was my purpose. That's why I believe I was put here. And I don't think I'm anything special. I think all of you are doing the same with your friends and family as well, trying to wake them up to what is bright, right in front of them. So thank you. Again, if you'd go do over there, they have all sorts of other stuff. Go to the top. You'll see the other options like the iodine pills. You'll be able to select a tab, I believe. And then, again, they have other stuff other than food, like the Alexa Pure Pro. Any of those, we will get a commission and you'll get a discount. And that helps us, again, because we cover controversial things and we're not treated traditionally. All right. And then as far as Japan, to buy Tomahawk missiles, I have said watch Japan, and it's not something like I'm reading a crystal ball. It's Fugel fam members and military members saying that Japan is going to play a big part. You can see it in the actual geopolitics that are going on right now. You can see it by Shinzo Abe getting taken out. He was actually one of the biggest proponents, and his party, he led the party that was trying to get Japan to the point where it would act not only defensively if somebody attacked them, but to act offensively, to do first strikes, to try to protect their country. This is a big deal. So Dex, they're to buy Tomahawk missiles in defense buildup. You see Poland, you see all of these different countries building up their militaries. What are they building it up for?
Well, it's even more important when you're looking at Japan, because they've always had a defense only position. And this is definitely putting them more in line with the offensive shift that they said they were going to take. This is putting them in line with being more militarized and investing in that, as opposed to not, where they would sit back and allow the U.S. and others to protect them alone. They're seeing a definite need now, not to change their posture, but they're actually not only just saying it, they're actually doing it. So the fact that they're making this huge missile buy, while it's great for the military industrial complex, I'm sure they're all just, excited to sell as much as stuff as they can. You also have to look at this from the global perspective, and why are they doing it, and what makes them think they need this. And it's obvious when we look at what's happening, with the threat of Taiwan, what we've seen happening in Europe with Vlad, and then of course you've got NK, just a complete wild card with what they've been doing with their testing. And God only knows what they may or may not actually just do randomly with their own equipment. So I think they're definitely following the path that they said they were when they said they were switching, their position on being more offensive, or at least more defensive, in the sense of protecting themselves as opposed to relying on just their allies.
Yeah, they're turning. And by the way, Shinzo Abe's perishing, him passing, that actually helped the cause. That pushed the needle over where it needed to be. There was a lot of support after he passed. Remember, he was taken out by some weirdo with a homemade shoddy. That very strange, and it was covered for a couple days, and then it just moved on. You're talking about a former prime minister, the equivalent of our president, getting taken out, and it was just kind of a blip. I'm sure they covered a whole lot more there, but we're talking about just a couple days. We had more coverage on like the smallest countries in Africa having their leaders taken out. Shinzo Abe, it was like blip. That was it. We had more coverage on Kirstie Alley perishing. It's weird to me. It shows where people's priorities are in general, or at least the media's priorities. Nana of Montana, great comments, by the way. Said it, and then somebody else said their grandkids in Northwest Washington are homeschooled, 15 no devices. I'm not saying, and I'm not judging. My kids have devices. My 16-year-old, she has a cell phone, and like I said, it's very hard nowadays to not use them. It's much harder, and it's a bigger challenge to not use any devices. A lot of parents now use devices if they are to get anything done. They put the device in front of their kid to watch a show or watch a kid's show for an hour so they can get some chores done. Then there's the other end of the spectrum where kids are on it 24/7. We don't allow that. And again, that's something that it's something that I think a lot of folks do. And even if they don't admit it, they do it. It's something that we don't know the long-term ramifications of those devices. We don't know what it's going to do in the long term. I mean, I know when I was a kid, they said don't sit too close to the TV. Imagine having a cell phone in your hand with, harmful rays coming into it at all times. Sean Samuels, and then somebody else said a really good comment. And Reed, yes, Reed, I believe I'm right there with you. Not on screen while they eat, Cloud Pharrell. Nana of Montana. Fam wants me to have smartphone in case of emergency. I fall sometimes. Nana of Montana, I totally believe in it for that purpose. Same with the systems like the, what do you call it? The life alerts and things like that. Those are really important. I know that it saved a couple of my family members 1 or 2 times now. But as far as just sitting in front of them all day, 24/7, not good. Chinese and Indian soldiers slugged out hand-to-hand in brutal border clashes. It's not an old story, but it's definitely deja vu. It says Indian and Chinese soldiers have clashed along a disputed border in India's eastern Arunach, and I'm going to totally butcher this, Arunachal Pradesh state, resulting in minor injuries on both sides. The Indian Army announced today. A statement from the Indian Army said troops from both sides, quote, immediately disengaged after the clash on Friday along the Towang sector of India's Arunachal Pradesh. I think I said that right. It says, without providing evidence, India-based Asian News International claimed 300 Chinese soldiers had been involved. This, if this is true, this would be a much bigger clash than what happened before. The previous clash that happened it wasn't in Tibet, was it? It was along the mountains. And remember that both China and India have their borders past the other ones. So it's almost like the Visa symbol or something, where they're, or what do you call them? The pie charts that intersect. Their border is road over here, and India's has their border over here, and there's a part in the middle where they both claim they get ownership over. So they have constantly been in the same place, and they clash and they fight. The last one, they were on cliff sides. They did not have weapons, and they said supposedly that they, hand-to-hand combat, and that they were throwing each other off the cliffs. The Indian side said that 20 perished. So 20 soldiers ended up, passing by getting thrown off a cliff. The Chinese side did not put out their numbers. They did not put out, what ended up happening with that. So Dex, this sounds like it was much bigger. In my mind, I've pointed out, and this is my opinion, that India is kind of backing off of China. They have had this conflict going for a very long time, but it seems to me like they have helped Xi in a lot of ways. They're financially connected. It makes me wonder what's actually going on here. And they've backed up their forces that were on those borders. All of their gear and their temporary buildings and things have all moved back, almost like they're in some sort of truce or something. But does this set them back?
Well, yeah, and this is, there's even a picture in here. It's kind of blurred out of who's of like this hand-to-hand type stuff, but it makes me wonder how these military units presumably are armed. I couldn't imagine they're wandering around without arms, but maybe they are wandering around without arms, and that's why they throw stones and throw fists at each other, because that's what it literally says. They were challenged and stones flew and fists flew. So, you never hear that except for here for some strange reason. Well, I kind of understood it a little bit when the first reports last time were on the cliffs, and I'm just in my mind, I'm envisioning these like very narrow passages, and they come across each other, and it's who's going to move forward, who's not, and do they go fisticuffs and throw a couple people off the cliff. That's probably what I'm envisioning happened. But here it is again. We're hearing a similar story, and this whole notion of hand-to-hand combat, and with, these two countries. Now, mind you, India plays along with everyone. They do their drills with Vlad. They do their drills with Xi. They do their drills with the West and our allies. But they still have this certain clash with Xi in this certain territories where they overlap, as you call it. And I think the term you're looking for was a Venn diagram.
Yes,
by the way.
And here's what I think about this, because I do believe, because they have The Beijing Cooperative, is it the Beijing? It's an acronym, and Russia, India, China, and some others are in this group, and they're financially tied that way. India has been joining Russian drills that have been side by side with China, militarily drilling and practicing together. But wait, they're mortal enemies. You see them fighting like this. In my mind, I believe Indians down on the lower levels and lower ranks, they do have a problem with Chinese. And the same thing on the lower ranks of them. They are still battling, but their governments are working together. And it's not like everybody has forgiven this huge battle that they've been doing for years and years. In fact, there has been a huge theory that India and China could start World War III because if they go at each other, right? Or if they start nuking each other. But it seems to me like India has been secretly working alongside China, alongside Russia, and in this thing. There could be a situation where Xi and India's leader come about and say, hey, you join us in this future conflict, we'll give you Tibet, or we'll give you these, what are the mountains called? The mountains that they fight over, very famous name, and it's at the tip of my tongue. The Himalayas, is that right?
Himalayans.
Yeah, the Himalayan mountains, because they've argued over this land. What if China ends up taking Taiwan? What if they say, well, you can have the Himalayas, we'll officially give you that border, you help us in this next conflict, and we'll be financially tied, and you'll be on sitting at the table after we win. Just hypothetically, if they are planning on taking over the world and doing this conflict, then hypothetically they give India whatever they want and say you're spot at the table. This is 1.4 billion people in India, 1.4 billion people in China. That's almost half the world's population is centered right there, 40% of it. If they teamed up along with Russia, yeah, that would be a fighting force against NATO. It wouldn't be good, to say the least. And that's not including NK or Cuba or any of those smaller parties that are involved comparatively. And then China maps out plans to put astronauts on the moon and Mars. Just goes back, and I know that there's so many divides here, and people they throw rocks at their television. It's not real. Either way, I think it's fascinating, whatever's going on, and I think soon the argument will be put to rest, or we'll know for sure like they're totally full of crap, because they're saying that regular people are going to be going up. But then again, most people think, oh, well, everything's going to be destroyed before this happens, or there will be some convenient reason why regular people won't be able to go up to space. 30 years ago, the Chinese government initiated a secret plan for its space program, including a key goal of building a space station by 2020. At the time, the country was 11 years from sending its first astronaut into space, and its space efforts were going through a rough patch. Chinese rockets failed in 91, 92, 95, and twice in 1996. The worst failure in 1996 was a rocket that tipped to its side, flew in the wrong direction, and exploded 22 seconds after launch, showering a Chinese village with falling wreckage and flaming fuel that took the lives of at least 63 people. With grand spaceflight plans of some nations have ended up many years behind schedule, China completed the assembly of its in-orbit of its Tiangong space station in late October. They have finished that, by the way. We just talked about it only 22 months later than planned, and on November 29th, the Shenzhou 15 mission blasted off from China's Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center deep in the Gobi Desert and took 3 astronauts to the space station to begin permanent occupancy of the outpost. So just to confirm, we've talked about this over about a year. I want to say it's been less than a year and a half, where they sent the first part of this space station up. I mean, it seems like yesterday they were talking about how they weren't going to be a part of the International Space Station anymore, and that they were going to start their own. They launched all 3 of those rockets, and here's where you know where it started. The first rocket that we all covered, the whole community covered and followed, that rogue rocket that was flying around the Earth and may have hit us. We have now had that 3 times. All 3 of those ones that was brought down to Earth and that came, careening out of control. All 3 of those were the 3 delivery systems for the Tiangong space station, which and we didn't find that out until the 3rd, but that was my guess the whole time, that these rockets were the rockets that were going up and delivering the space station. Now it's confirmed that all 3 of those were huge parts of the space station. The 3rd one and the final one, they were set to basically automatically construct itself. Now it is complete, and there's actually astronauts up there. They have now set up their own. Just to point this out, if it is real and it's 100% floating above us, they say that that is something for the military. That's not for planting planters and doing flower experiments. They say that that's a key part of their future defense and their military tools. So they just finished what could potentially be a super weapon or a space weapon after, the last couple years of our U.S. Space Force generals telling us there's a war above us and it's happening right now, and that they have weaponized space. I think this is something to pay attention to, whether you believe it or not. Try to at least say, if it is true, then heck, we might want to keep our eye on it. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, yeah, I think this is a very long article, and you guys can go read all the details because it goes through a lot of the history of what they've done and what we've done. One of the most interesting things, in my opinion, is in 2011, Congress ended up banning American space agencies from spending any money to cooperate with China, except in limited circumstances. So let me put that a little bit into perspective. Back in 2011, we were worried about their acceleration. And mind you, as Adam just pointed out, they achieved their space station goals and only missed their mark by 20 something months or whatever it was. That is not very far off from when they originally were talking about this many, many years ago. So they put this plan in place and they met it. They have been advancing their space program at light speeds in comparison to ourselves. And I say that because, look, it was in 2011 was the last time we flew our own astronauts into space. And it took until recently with Elon doing it at the private sector. I think it was in 2020 when the first humans left from America on American equipment to go back to space. So we've sort of been on this very slow, methodical path of innovation. And, certainly we've got great technology and great innovation, but at the same time, we've not been doing it at breakneck speeds. We haven't been doing it we haven't been saying, well, we'll launch this rocket even though we don't know how it's going to come back to Earth. We won't say anything about it because they'll fall back down to Earth and somebody will have to deal with it. But that's the kind of shortcuts they're taking because they are moving as fast as they possibly can. They are going, very, very fast. And I think that's what we need to pay attention to, is the fact that they are going to eclipse us. I think it was even stated by one of the military people that by 2045, they would actually surpass us in capabilities in space. The Pentagon predicted that back in August, that Xi would surpass American capabilities in space as soon as 2045. That could happen even sooner at the pace they're going. Hopefully we'll keep up our own innovation, but I think that's sort of the message is these guys have come out of almost nowhere and have really advanced their capability.
On every front, we're talking, and nobody wants to admit it, especially hardcore traditional Americans. They don't want to admit that this is happening. Still now, people say, oh, if it was made there, it's just going to fall apart. Meanwhile, our own military was shipping things out, advanced things for them to build. Our weapons and our systems and our chips and our most advanced things are manufactured over there, alongside the 1 million factories that they purposely make knockoffs off of everything. Their laws are different there. That's why when you get a knockoff product, say it's a Sam Dung TV, right? And you're like, Sam Dung, never heard of that. It's a knockoff, right? But it's cheaper. It's half the price. They are making money on that kind of stuff because the other ones are marked up extremely. They are doing it themselves, and all of those companies that make those knockoffs, those are directly funneling money up to the Chinese government. That is all funding whatever they're doing. But as far as advanced, people think that they can't make advanced stuff. That's underestimating your enemy. And our own Pentagon and our own government has said that they are making some of the most advanced computer technology there that's ever been seen. I mean, think about their culture, about how look at just the general rates of what happens here in the U.S. as far as who goes on to further education. And it's kind of sad to say, but America's not at the top of that list. Or in general. So as far as this goes, you're talking about they've now created the largest navy out of nowhere. Everything China's done has been out of nowhere. And it's because people had this attitude of underestimating them and saying, it's whatever, don't worry about them. We're number one. Well, they want to be number one more than anything. And under their heavenly mandate, under their religion, under everything, they want to be number one. There is no being number two forever. And that's what people need to start realizing. Their leaders are not successful unless they are on their road to number one. They believe they should be ruling the planet. It's wrote out on paper. It's wrote out in their actual goals. And they are fast, incredibly fast, moving up in this thing. They are now building nukes that nobody could have thought that they would have already had 300 and moving up to the 1,500 goalpost. I mean, this is insane. The fact that we're talking about this space station not only being done, but having people going up there, this is like the deadlines are all moving up. Why? And just a side note, and people point out, thank you, Nana of Montana. Good night, y'all. Stay safe. I hope you watch the replay of the later stuff. We're not even to the good stuff right now. Nana of Montana says, we are starting to have a diesel and gas problem here. We have had several pumps in town run empty the last week. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Says, good night, y'all. Stay safe. May God bless. Thank you, Adam, Dax, and Mods. Nana of Montana, please watch that replay. There's stuff that's coming up later that's really important. If you do, just fast forward through the show when you watch it tomorrow. And then God bless from Be Real Beast. Thank you for your massive support. Thank you for supporting Independent. Appreciate that. And then Nana of Montana, again, thank you, and thank you. So as far as it says, North Korean cyber spies deploy new tactic, tricking foreign experts into writing research for them. So wait, what happened here? They actually tricked experts into doing their work for them?
Yeah, exactly. They posed as a think tank, a director of one of them, and asked a person to write a paper. And in the process of it, was asking specific questions about what their thoughts were on NK security and other stuff like that. And they were posing as Jenny Town, who was the 38 North director, which was this think tank. And when the author, who didn't think anything out of the norm, was going through the motions, he actually contacted Jenny to follow up on some follow-up questions. And then she was like, wait a minute, I didn't reach out to you. And that's when they realized that somebody was sort of, instead of hacking their computer, instead of trying to download all the secret files, was literally just trying to engage them, almost phishing like you see in those phishing emails, but getting them to write it down on paper for them. And they thought they were doing the right thing.
So, I mean, it's because who would suspect it's not like they were asking for money. They were actually asking for research. And if you were the recipient of that, you would say, okay, yeah, cool, on this project, whatever. And they would do it for free. Instead of infecting his computer and stealing sensitive data, as hackers typically do, the sender appeared to be trying to elicit his thoughts on North Korean security issues by pretending to be the 38 North director, Jenny Town. Says, I realized when it wasn't legit once I contacted the person with the follow-up questions and found out that there was, in fact, no request that was made, and that the person was also a target. DePetris told Reuters, and referring to Town, so I figured out pretty quickly that this was a widespread campaign. The email was part of a new and previously unreported campaign by a suspected NK hacking group, according to the cybersecurity experts, 5 targeted individuals and emails reviewed by Reuters. It said that the cybersecurity experts suspect that the hackers were targeting people who are influential in foreign governments to better understand where Western policy is headed on North Korea. And I mean, this would reflect, too, on what they say is true, which is that Kim is super paranoid and thinks that everybody's out to get him, and his policy changes about, sending a nuke automatically if he even suspects somebody's trying to take him out. Maybe they were trying to figure that out. And then before we talk about Riyadh, all bets off if Iran gets nuclear weapon. I do want to remind you, if you do want to go and protect yourself and your cars and your trucks and your generators and even your ham radios in your house against an EMP or a CME will happen, a coronal mass ejection, a Carrington level event, or an electromagnetic pulse from another government or from our own, who knows. You can do so at marfooglenews.com/EMP. This is a device that grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car, your truck, your boats, your motorcycles, your house, and even your generators from this. So again, if you want to protect yourself, the EMP shield for the car is their most popular, or their trucks. That one is extremely easy to do. Anybody can do it. You don't have to have mechanical knowledge. In about 15 minutes, you are done and you have your car protected. Make sure to check that your car or truck is even needing of it, but most older cars and most newer cars will need these. So again, make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. It's a veteran-owned business. It's 100% American-made down to the screws, and you will get a $50 discount per device. So if you're saying, oh, crap, I have 5 cars, well, you'll get $250 off if you end up getting 5 devices, and you will end up helping us as well. Every single sale ends up giving us a small commission of it, and then that helps us financially to make up for, of course, covering controversial things and not always being suitable for advertisers. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. And again, I think that this will end up saving lives in the event of either of these events, and it can also protect you against lightning as well. In fact, they have a 100% lightning guarantee backed up by a $25,000 insurance policy. No questions asked. Now, just a reminder, we're going to have updates on all of the solar events that are going on right now. We're heading into the peak of the solar cycle. There are a good chunk of you that actually believe that our apocalypse will not be man-made. It won't be WW3. It won't be any of that. It will actually be from our sun. So that is something, if you do go down that road and you do some research, at the very least, we know there will be an event in the future. It's a matter of when, not if, and if the U.S. government and other governments around the world will fix our grid by the time that happens. All right, and then Dex, let's talk about Rahad says all bets off if Iran gets nuclear weapon.
Well, yeah. So this is sort of a big deal because they don't have nukes. A lot of the countries over there have agreed not to. But if the I country gets it, I think we're going to see the game is going to change dramatically. So this is coming out of SA. So this is Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud is the one who made the statement, and it's pretty stern, basically saying that all bets are off if they get one. So he's insinuating that means they're going to get them too, and I'm sure they've got the money to actually buy it.
Which is crazy to think that any one of these parties with all these billions or trillions of dollars can just go out and purchase it or do it whatever way they need to do it, they'll get it done. And then brace for all-out attacks on Russian soil, Kremlin official warns. So if you haven't followed for the last week or so, there have been several events that have happened inside Russia's border. This definitely puts people on edge because now UKR has the ability, with the newly gifted gear that the U.S. and other countries have given them, to be able to not only defend themselves, but to be an offensive power, to actually launch things into Russia and knock out certain areas. There's a lot of talk about UKR potentially hitting some of Russia's nuclear triad, as far as like hitting some of their most important targets. If that happens, that is not a good escalation. And considering who gave them the gear, there's a lot of talk from Putin directly even saying that the West is now responsible for this, and the West is basically funding this whole thing, and that they, on their news, by the way, if you watch some of the clips that have been all over Twitter, they are making fun of us on their media, and they're saying that basically they don't know what they just did. They're laughing about nuclear strikes, and again, it's a lot of Ganda on their television, but Yeah, no different than ours. Which Ganda is going to be more truthful, or is it all a bunch of lies? Dex, it says that Russia should be on alert for more UKR strikes into Russian territory following recent attack on Russia's Engels air base and another base in the Ryazan region within Russia. State Duma Deputy Andrei Gurlev warned over the weekend. So this is coming from their side. It's not coming from UKR. It's actually coming from the State Duma Deputy Andrei Gurlev. Do you think that this is them? Do they have information that we don't know about? They did hack the satellite systems and things. Do they know of a plan that, is this going to telegraph what is actually going to happen?
That certainly could be the case. They do have their own intelligence. I don't know what it is. They didn't say it, but they are basically putting this message out. And if they're putting this message out on their side, then it's for a purpose, probably more so for their own public and for their own people to be prepared. Especially when they think about the fact that, this is coming in onto their soil. We've only seen a few instances of that. We've seen early, maybe a couple months ago, we saw a couple of instances where they reached out and hit targets that were across the line, but not very deep. Although then just the other day, we reported on the drone strike that made it about 150 miles from Moscow. So as they are seeing this, this type of attacks ramping up from the UKR side, I think they're trying to prepare their citizens to understand that this may be happening in their neck of the woods. It's probably as much a Ganda piece for themselves to rally their own troops, so to speak, as it is a warning too, because we're in a different stage now. And especially with the equipment that we have sent, the US and others in the West have sent in, their capabilities are becoming greater. They being UKR's capabilities are becoming greater to be able to reach inside the motherland, so to speak.
And that's another thing. They're getting support from their people. They in Russia, as a citizen, they're probably looking at this and they're almost rooting for it. As far as on some of their media programs and even a call-in show, there was clips posted. They're saying, F USA and F this, and we need to go to conflict with the USA. People chanting. Meanwhile, someone pointed out, maybe that was Nana of Montana, somebody else pointed out too, that in Poland, as they are mobilizing and getting troops together and all of these different events happening and moving new systems into Poland, they are protesting there against this. The people there don't want it. In Russia, there's protests against this, but there's also a lot of support for this. And if they're being fed that, this is going to hit us inside this, there may be a call for this to escalate. And that's something no one wants to see. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about the other Vladimir and his comments here?
Yeah, certainly. We've seen him go from a position of requiring Vlad to be out, whether it be taken out or whether it be out of position of power for him to negotiate. But now what we're hearing is in a interview he did recently, he was asked, let's imagine if Vlad gets a cold and perishes or accidentally falls out the window and perishes, will the war go on? And Zelenskyy said, no, there will be no. The authoritarian regime is dreadful. There's a high risk that everything can be decided by one person. So when this one person leaves, the institution stops. So he is basically saying or painting a picture that everything that's happening is only because 100% because of Putin. And that's it. And that once he's gone, and if something were to happen to him, it would be over. That's a pretty strong statement. It basically means that this one guy is the dictator of everything that's going on there and nobody supports him. That may or may not be true, but it is interesting to see him paint that picture. It's not like it's putting a new bullseye or anything on Vlad. That's been there from day one, I'm sure, just as much as it is on anybody that's involved in conflict, especially the leaders of any of these countries when they're going against one another. So, but definitely some strong words here from Zelenskyy, so to speak. But it's nothing new on his part because he's always had a position of we won't negotiate unless he's out of the picture.
And as you know, there's a lot of Ganda saying that something's going to happen to Vlad. Is that anything that's actually going to happen? Again, maybe it's telegraphing that they're going to try to do something. I don't know. But it says NATO and Russia, no doubt, may fight major war over UKR. Stoltenberg. So Jens Stoltenberg keeps saying these huge comments, and being, of course, the Secretary General of NATO, it's not good. It says NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned on Friday that the Russia-UKR conflict could escalate into a major conflict. Stoltenberg's remarks come more than 9 months after Russian President Vlad launched his invasion of UKR on February 24th, setting off an armed conflict that has been subject to worldwide rebuke over a lack of justification and alleged human rights abuses. And by worldwide, they say that a lot. It's NATO. There are a lot of countries that are actually on Vlad's side. Even we just covered one yesterday. What was that? Bulgaria? Was it Bulgaria? People were in the streets saying like win for Vlad is a win for us or something. And then throughout the conflict, analysts have raised concerns about the potential for spillover into nations that are part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organizations. UKR is not part of the coalition, with apparent corruption being a major roadblock to its membership. It said, however, Russia is expanding the invasion or mistakenly striking one of UKR's neighbors that are part of the organization would threaten to lead into a wider conflict. Article 5 of NATO's charter states that an attack against one ally is considered an attack against all, meaning an attack against a NATO state could draw a military response by all others. This is what people fear. This is what people talk about when they talk about, of course, the Article 5 being invoked. It says in an interview with Norwegian broadcasters NRK, Stoltenberg says he fears that there is no doubt the war could reach that point, and that authorities are working every day to avoid a larger conflict, according to translation by PBS NewsHour. It says, I feel that the war in UKR will get out of control and spread into a major conflict between NATO and Russia. He said, adding that if things go wrong, they can go horribly wrong. One thing I want to point out is people just do not believe this is going to escalate, and they think that everything is going to go back to normal. It's our human nature to think it's not. But this same thing happened in World II. In WW2, this same exact scenario was going on where we were sending gear and weapons and money into Europe. And there were even parties, protesting, saying, why are we sending money there when we could use it here? It's like everything is playing out again. And all it takes is one event. And when those missiles went into Poland, that was pretty freaky. As far as, a lot of us thought, is this it? But I don't think that was even big enough. It could be one person perishing. People said, oh, only 2 people perished, right? Doesn't matter. It could be one. But what my fear is what could us get in there? What motivation is there to actually have NATO go to conflict with Russia? Well, what if they actually did take Vlad out? What if they did go in and take that whole country? That could be a possibility. What if secretly Xi is actually playing both sides and, pretends to be his ally and actually screws him at the last minute and then helps NATO end up taking over Vlad, and we do it, because he's the new Adolf or something, right? We don't know what's actually going on here, but there's a lot of, I guess, as I said in the beginning, the fiber optics strings going out, and there's a lot of things that could potentially happen. People consider it fear-mongering if you state that this may happen, but the writing on the wall says it is going to happen. And that's what's freaky about this, but that doesn't mean that it's going to hit our soil. That doesn't mean it's going to affect you on 4th Street in Texas or something. But it very well could affect your friends or family that are in the military, or it could affect somebody for being drafted. It could affect your 18 to 35-year-old nephew. It could affect many people. That's why people fear World War III. It has been a long time since the last one, almost too long. People cannot wrap their heads around a full global scale conflict. We think we are so civilized, yet everyone is still fighting. There's been cyber conflict going on for years. We're in a cyber war. Space Force and other generals have been saying that there is a conflict going on above our heads. And if it gets too serious, satellite systems get knocked out or something else, then it's going to get hot. And there is motivation. There's money to be made. The military-industrial complex could go all the way through. They could lose 2 billion people, and they would still be happy because the people that are in charge, they, of course, are going to have knowledge of where to be safe, how to protect them and their own. Do you think that they care about you? Do you think they care about us as far as if we survive? Oh, well, they wouldn't destroy, what if... we might all think that our city is so beautiful they would never destroy something like that, but they don't care. We all believe where we live is a beautiful place, right? Well, maybe they don't care so much. Maybe they'll protect their town, but maybe they won't protect yours. I think that if you look at what is happening in Poland, if you look at what is happening in Japan, if you look at what is happening in Europe, if you look at what is happening with UK, if you look at what is happening in Russia and in Ukraine, if you look at what's happening with Taiwan and China, in the Middle East, with India, with everything else, it's pretty hard to say that something is not on its way. But again, I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate all of your opinions. Again, I might not agree with them, but I definitely love hearing them, and I can change my mind. I would love it. In fact, yeah, I think that we will have a World War III, and sooner than later. Please change my mind. Tell me why it's not going to happen. Traveler, thank you as well. You guys, thank you so much. Again, very, very incredible. Thank you so much for your support. $50 super chat from Traveler. If you do that, though, make sure to write a comment or write something out. Thank you so much. I'd love to. That way I can obviously get to know you, or you can make a statement or shout out somebody or anything that I feel like gives it value when you do super chats. And then, by the way, thank you everybody over on D Live. Thank you, Vicky K. Thank you for your nightly stop by. Beer Juice, Zookeeper Kims. Thank you for getting the Mafia badge. Cloud Pharrell, 33 months, fam. India banned hates and or BlackRock on board, are back on board. Cloud Pharrell, which, by the way, I saw a lot of comments about that. Scooby-Doo Right, thank you for gifting out badges. And then Earthwoman, thank you for being here. And then Cloud Pharrell, we are the pushers of the N and the W and the O. They did a new simulation. Cloud Pharrell, if I haven't already covered it, please send me what you are talking about, if you can, on Twitter. Otherwise, Adam@marfooglenews.com or Dex@marfooglenews.com. I would love to know what simulation they did. Simulations usually point to real events. Dex, over to you. So with Jen Stoltenberg, this isn't the only person, but this is a very important person saying it. It's not something we really want to hear.
Well, and he's stating the obvious, right? It's not like people don't know this. So for him to make this kind of statement, that in and of itself is a statement, right? That means something. So for him to come out and make a statement of this type, it's again, saying what we already know, but at the same time, from his position of authority, or at least his position of I won't call it power, but or understanding what's going on. He definitely has the ability to put out a narrative, so to speak. And this is, it's very alarming on one hand. And it's also, on the other hand, a lot of people that look at this and think about the potential orchestration think that, okay, well, then this is part of that as well. So either way, it doesn't really matter, because it is, there's something here, right? There's a lot going on. This is a real event that's actually happening. It affects people's lives, whether they're in it now or they're going to be in it later. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
And I want to point out a point that is incredibly valid. Sweden and Finland, who have been completely neutral throughout all of this other crazy stuff that's gone on through the world, they are now formally bidding to join NATO. So even if everything goes back to normal, Vlad is not going to be happy. Russia's not going to be happy because two of their neighbors have now joined this alliance. They're essentially surrounded on huge swaths of their border. It says their membership has not been confirmed. However, Turkey and Hungary have not yet agreed to their entry, which Turkey obviously has held that up several times. It says have not agreed to their entry. Countries would need to receive unanimous consent from current member states in order to join. It says Putin on Friday said Russia has floated the idea of using preemptive strikes using a hypersonic weapon. He described such an action was based off of U.S. conventional prompt global strike capability, which would involve striking an enemy's target with precision-guided weapons anywhere in the world within an hour, according to the Associated Press. Speaking about a disarming strike, maybe it's worth thinking about adopting the ideas developed by our U.S. counterparts. Their ideas of ensuring their security, the Russian leader said during a conference. So he's saying that we have this thing of first strike. Well, we might just pick that up too. And mind you, if there was any truth to it, that the fact that they were ahead, if we are developing, and it's kind of funny that the timing, Dex, did you think about the timing of us coming out and saying we had a successful test right after this? Like right after they said that we might do a preemptive thing? Is the U.S. possibly putting this out to say like, hey, we have it too now, so it will just be as quick? Because at one point, if there's an advantage, if they can get to us before we can get to them, then maybe we wouldn't have a chance to respond. And if there was a system that's
theory,
building,
right?
Well, and if there was a system in building, they would want to hit us right before we finish it. Otherwise, if we do, then there's a closing window of advantage if that's the truth, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I think if we come out and we're all equal and we all have the same hypersonic capability, then there's no longer that advantage. So there's definitely something to be said about the messaging and when that came out. There's of course a lot of thought behind whether or not we actually do have that. We probably have it, and we've just never shown it publicly. So I know they've talked about having hypersonic capabilities for a long time. I know we've had it in other aircrafts and things that were all experimental, but to have it in production, as in, hundreds or thousands of these delivery vehicles in production ready to fly, I think that's a different scenario.
Okay, here's another one. So the things that went into Poland and hit, right? If you had open eyes and open ears during that was kind of shady. And the reason why is because obviously at first everybody said that came from Vlad. And then they said, no, we're investigating it. They wouldn't let UKR in on it. And then during that time, UKR actually came out and said, no, it wasn't. I know it wasn't. Our men said it was not ours and denied it. So then there was a question, and he was calling for WW3. Then they possibly had a conversation. They had Article 4 invoked, and they talked about it. They talked about Article 5. Maybe they came up with something and saying, hey, yeah, maybe they sat behind closed doors and said, yeah, it was Vlad's, but we can't do this right now. We've got to figure something out. We got to say it was you or whatever. Convinced him to then backtrack on his statements. Just a hypothetical, and I don't say I believe it. But it seems right after that, Poland started mobilizing troops. They started moving gear. They started moving offensive gear and offensive missiles into Poland. We very well could, everything could be moving forward. And the general rule is that they are going to keep the public as calm as possible until the last second. Just saying. When did Poland start doing all this mobilization? When did all of these other countries, and by the way, before that, they've been handing out iodine tablets and stuff for nuclear. We don't know what's actually happening here. But I do notice that Poland is now doing a whole lot more than before when that accident, and if they say that UKR did it, then no, well, don't worry about it, right? It was just an accidental, it went over and it hit something. It seems just the whole thing was odd. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it. And then checks its bomb shelter. We're going to talk about this and some other information. Of course, crazy stuff regarding Russia checking their bomb shelters. Before we do, though, one of the most important affiliate, I think this is one of the most important affiliates we have, because I do believe anybody that does end up picking up generators is A, smart and responsible, but B, is going to be super, super happy with one of the best made solar generators out there. Again, this is a system that I personally use. I don't have the Kodiak X2. This is their new all built-in one, but it's the same, again, same manufacturer, same builder. I have the Flex 1500. This is what I recommend, but this is, again, the system I have. I have a base unit with 2 batteries, and I have 8 panels. That is actually a really awesome setup, and I have been using the crap out of it, and I've been using it for all sorts of stuff. It's still portable, and I can take all 8 panels with me wherever I go. It's awesome. But if you just wanted to get the one battery in the head unit, and say 4 panels would be the best, but you can even just get one, again, this is an awesome system because it's modular. The greatest part is you can just get one panel, you can get one battery, or if you want to go over time and get more and more and build up, you can get one battery at a time over years and build up a really phenomenal system. You can expand it up to 96 batteries. The only downside I would say of this right now is that lithium is in high demand and in low supply, so they are there's a waiting list on these. So if you do want to get one of those, I would definitely get your name on one. marfugglenews.com/energy. As they get the lithium, they end up building the units and sending them out. So these are very coveted. It is very hard to get them very fast right now, and it is one of the best made ones out there. It is also silent, which means you are going to be stealth. There's no sound involved. You can have it inside your house. No flammable fuels that you have to keep in barrels. You just have the panels, and you'll have unlimited power as long as you have a sun rising every single day. You can also charge them via your wall or your car. Now, up to the other one, make sure to use the code Marfoogle if you want to get that one. You can get upwards of $170 off on certain packages. On the top one, this is really good for RV or van lifers, or if you just want a portable unit that's all built in one, that you just take your panel, or you just charge it from your wall. This has a built-in battery, so it's all built in one, and it has a bragging rights of 6,000 charge cycles. You could use this every day from full to empty for 16 years, and it will still have 80% of its capacity. And that means essentially if you're not using this every day, or even if you are, it's going to last decades. If you're not using this every day, this could last literally half of a lifetime. So again, make sure to go check this out. marfugglenews.com/energy. This is a great unit. It's beefy, and it can be dual linked. You can actually link up two to output a huge amount of power. You can power pretty much anything if you dual link this. And then it is a UPS seamless backup supply. So uninterrupted power supply means if your power goes off, it's going to switch right over in less than like 10 milliseconds, right over to the generator. So go over there, check it out. I do believe that this will possibly save lives, and it will definitely make your life a whole lot easier through the next storm you go through the next forced blackout that you go through. If you're in California or any of the other states that are picking that up, go check it out. All right, and that helps us too, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're going to get a chunky discount, and you're going to be helping independent news. All right, and then, so by the way, I want to point out, over the last month, there have been confirmations. At first it was rumor, and first it was speculation that Russia was checking and inspecting all of its bomb shelters. It has since now been confirmed that they have literally gone through all of their shelters and inspected. But there's even more now. It says Russia quietly checks its bomb shelters as war fears spread. Remember, this was like totally speculative. It was, tinfoil hat talk just a couple months ago. It says, in the latest reflection of the Kremlin's expanding war effort, bomb shelters across Russia are being brought back to life after more than 3 decades of neglect since the end of the Cold Conflict. State workers are quietly checking basements and other protected facilities, repairing and cleaning installations not used since the Soviet era, according to people familiar with the efforts. The moves are part of a broader push by authorities to make sure civil defense infrastructure is ready in case of a wider conflict. People familiar with the situation said, speaking on the condition of anonymity, to discuss matters that aren't public. The campaign hasn't been officially announced and isn't driven by any particular threats or plans to make use of the civil defense infrastructure, the people said. But after the Kremlin's sudden call up to a 300,000 reservists starting in September was plagued by bureaucratic bungles and setbacks, the authorities are taking no chances with other war-related preparations. Now, fast forward, November, we found that out, right? Fast forward, you actually have a plan that leaked out from Vlad's side called Noah's Ark, which by itself, if you look at what Noah's Ark is, it's essentially, getting prepared for some huge event. The fact that they're talking about a Poseidon device that can basically create a 1,500-foot wave that could wipe out whole countries. Now you have not only Russian, but now you have U.S. citizens around the country saying that our actual bomb shelters are being inspected and looked at, and now people are going. So now you have confirmed reports of it happening there, which again we've known for a couple weeks now. But now you have speculations and, of course, words on Twitter and everywhere else saying that they are now digging out our ancient bomb shelters and things. So what is actually happening here? Are they actually preparing? Why is it so quiet? Usually if they want to scare you, they put it on the front page. They don't put it on the back page. And they most definitely put it, right at the front to scare the crap out of you. Quietly, this is happening. Even old ones that are part of parks that are, just something that used to be used in WW2 and WW1, they are looking at in budget terms, now part of the largest budget we've ever done, about revamping all of our nuclear shelters. Most people do not even know where their local one is. I will say this, though. Fugel fam members and military members over the last month have said that we are at this huge kind of high alert level. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any information about this? And this is a general call to action. Do you know about this happening near you? Do you know about a famous or a big nuclear shelter that hasn't been used for years and they are revamping it, doing anything of the sort, loading things into it? Let us know. Make sure you can actually leave a message at 224-400-MARF. You can do that if you have some sort of information. But more importantly, we also have marfugelnews.com/playmyvideo. Now, if they are doing this, I just wonder if it's super quiet, if it's something that we should be paying attention to. Let's see here. Let's go over to the chat. Let me ask real quick. Does anybody know of this happening on a wide scale in the United States? Or is it just speculative rumor? Let's see here. Ilea, what's going on? Doomsday. In Europe, this is happening all over since the start of the UKR conflict. Okay. And I believe that, especially in Europe. I guess the question is the U.S. doing this? And are they physically loading things in? That would be a big deal, I would think. Anita Torres says, no, Jesus is the homie. We go way back from flats on a Cadillac. I love that. Not where I'm at, says Wide Awake and Angry. Let's see here. 1B, D-Live, Hearts Up. Hey, Phil Billy, nice to see you. Wages Rolled, I did it what Deck said. Kathleen, got everything just in case. Only in New York, ? Malia Mom. So, actually, I believe we actually covered some of that stuff. Scientology has nuclear bunker under Big Bear Mountain. Spend there 30 years. Interesting. Dex, do you remember what it was called? It was something called Green. It was not Green Mountain. Evergreen. What was that place that all of the Republican Party got in a train accident while headed to? Do you remember that story? That was before you came along and were with me. There was a train crash and it was...
No, I was here. I remember it. And I cannot remember the name of the retreat. I'm looking it up real quick, though.
I just wonder if there are any big events surrounding this. Bases started getting updated before C-19, then faster, says Carol McLean. Lord Andrew, remember that. The Greenbrier, Stiletto Czar, thank you. That is exactly what it is. That was a retreat where they were sending the Republican Party, and they had all of them headed there. And what was weird is they didn't clear their schedule. They did something or other. They basically said that they were going on a retreat, or a lunch or something else, but it ended up being something weird. And a garbage truck parked right in front of the train. And it ended up, nobody ended up losing their life, but the train had a huge accident after hitting what looked to be a garbage truck that was parked and ditched on the tracks. It was really weird. Tinfoil Hat says they all meet at the Denver airport now. I don't know if you're joking, but that's actually I wonder what is going on there right now, because there's also rumors that is home to the biggest underground shelter and base there. We also know that Atlas Survival, the bunkers that they're doing, you can tell from the outside they're doing more business than ever. I don't know if you've seen his company and everything that he's doing right now, but since C-19, since CV happened, his company exploded. I'm pretty sure he might be, I don't know where he is in the world as far as bunker makers, but his company is just humming. They say they have made more bunkers they have in the last 3 years than ever, that it's picking up so crazy. But again, a lot of companies say that. I'd love to get Atlas Survival, that gentleman, on here. He's been on Canadian Prepper and said that he has made bunkers for one of the top 5 richest people in the world. And we're still up, speculative of who that may be. Coggenbama, let's see here. LOL, that's fast research. UKR and the Atlas guy. Oh, yes, you're right. DJ Nazi. I think Atlas is in UKR making bunkers. The U.S. has miles of underground infrastructure for the Gov and elite only Magic Mountain. So Sign Digger, that's also part of the Boring Company. Do you think the Boring Company has all of this equipment to make these tunnels for Hyperloops and they're not using it for deep underground military bases? Come on. Highlandville House, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Dwayne Baldwin says none in Odessa, West Texas know of a few rest areas, tornado shelters towards Lubbock, Texas. Patrick Denherter, it's getting harder to breathe now. This is real. Traveler says interconnected. I have endured and enduring a spouse that will be in jail forever. I'm praying for you, man. Someone is in my day. Do not know how much more I can bear. Hyperloops are for Jessifers. Ron from Atlas Shelter. Super nice guy. Aaliyah, yes, he is. Let's see here. We've got Terabile. Oh, dear, no mention Boring Company. Yeah, Boring Company. Of course, Elon is making bunches on Gub. Let's see here. Bobby Fry, thanks for those words. No, they don't care about people, or they wouldn't lie continuously to us. Yeah, Professor Lusoplotamus, you are completely right. Dana, Cessna Grammy, I believe you are right as well. Sending the UK is being used to build the bunkers. Ooh, the money that we are sending is being used to build them. See, a lot of things, there are a lot that are already built. Lando T, who's Sean? Springfield Underground Food Storage Government, Springfield, Missouri. So Choctaw, are they loading it up? Just wonder. All Rider says short of breath chemicals going on in the sky. Yeah, Lisa, the cold would put me off also. Chai, will be okay. My parents told me to myself because they won't stop abusing. Life can always be worse. Enjoy the time you have. Chai, that's pretty messed up. Keep eye on Spectra Energy. And then Heartbroken Survivor. I actually thought of you when we were talking about that first story about cyber humans. If you did have the choice to get an implant that could basically give you a virtual vision of what is happening, would you do it? I know that you're blind, but what if you could do an implant that allows you to see again? I believe most blind people would. Is there a downside to that? People say, I would never do anything like that. But what if you had to then also get the Neuralink installed as well? And then Army has newly modified vehicles for impersonating Russian and French types. Dex, what the heck is this? Why do they have vehicles for this? What does this mean?
Well, so they use these vehicles specifically for training, and they have them. I think they're called surrogate vehicles, but they've recently added to their surrogate vehicle fleet both a Russian and a French type. And you can, on the French, obviously, you would think that that vehicle was be a friendly vehicle, and that's what it's used for, is to show up in training and stuff. That there's a similar vehicle, but of an alliance member or of an ally. And then in this case, with one of Vlad's vehicles, it's obviously set up to look and reflect and appear as if it was one of his vehicles. So they would be able to see that as an enemy vehicle. So it's interesting to see these additions recently, because obviously we know when they train for stuff, they're not just training for random events, they're training for the most likely scenarios that they expect to see happening. So by adding these two platforms is insightful on one hand. And then the other thing it also lends itself to think about is how much do these vehicles actually look like the impersonating vehicle that it is, and is it enough that it could be used in some sort of Ganda in another type of event elsewhere? So that's always an interesting question when you look at this stuff. I'm sure they can actually get real vehicles too. They probably have them, even from our enemies. Maybe not a lot of them, but enough if they needed to pull something off. But the fact that they actually create them specifically to look like the enemy or look like a friendly that would be seen in the field. That's what's interesting about this.
And how did we find out about this? Because what if they were trying to do a movie or something, right? What if they were making a movie to put all over something, right? Impersonating Russian and French types. And by the way, is there anybody that questions that French would actually switch sides? Because I've heard a lot of people question that they think that the French will actually take Russia's side if something really did pop off. Is there any validity to that? I know that the French were mad at us for giving stuff to Australia, or basically taking their contract away. But is there a real question if French would switch sides or something, or go with Vlad? Dex, do you know?
No, I'm not aware. I don't think that would happen. He certainly had a position of trying to, be a savior, but it didn't really work out very well for him from a negotiating standpoint. But I don't see a position where they would do anything against NATO or risk that.
I just wonder why they're impersonating. Is France going to be a big part of the next conflict? Why would they even put it in the budget to try to make these vehicles that look like it? Specifically,
that's a great question.
Why
honestly,
Russian
Adam,
and French?
That's an absolutely great question. Obviously, we'll assume, and it's being stated, that they're putting them in as a friendly, because they put the friendly vehicles in just as much as they put the adversary vehicles in. So that when they're training, they can recognize the shapes of the friendly vehicles and the signatures of them. So, but obviously they're making it out like France is going to play a bigger role, which is exactly what you're saying. That's a great question. Is this foreshadowing what they're expecting to happen in the near future?
I just thought it was interesting, like why, there's not 5 other countries listed here. It's just Russia and France. Let's see here. Quantum Leap says, I am an avatar. The French are fair weather friends. Fair weather friends. Wait, so like if the going's good, is that what a fair weather friend is? Is that somebody like when times are good? Is that kind of seems like what it would be, right? That's probably a good saying right there. Captain Scotty says, good question. I'm just curious. Like it seems to me like why would they do that? Well, during WW2, France was divided, says Trops Family Garden. Good comment. I would say look back to history. Look at what's going on. By the way, I just wanted to point out, thank you, Lisa and Ilea. Thank you so much. I don't know if Trinity made it here tonight. I haven't seen her in chat yet, but Trinity, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I know, again, a lot of people, I just read a bunch of prayer messages that were sent out for Trinity. Trinity went through some rougher times over the last few months. Same with Rip. Rip Curl, I didn't say hi to you earlier, and you made a comment, and I forgot to respond. But Rip, if you end up watching the replay or listening to it, or if you're still here, thank you so much. One, for coming in and modding, but two, for, gosh dang it, what'd you say? You said some really great comments earlier, and I was going to point it out. Oh, well, I'll remember it, and I'll probably say it on the next show. All right, and then Sam Bankman-Fried arrested. Founder arrested in the Bahamas. U.S. expected to request extraditions. Before we do that, I just want to remind you, make sure to go over and check out Off Grid. This isn't something we actually show that often. We have continued to be partners with them. The reason why, a lot of emails messaging me, asking me, how do you protect yourself from getting tracked or traced? Put it in these bags. These are Faraday bags. They protect you, but also they make small bags for your cell phones and things like that. You don't have to be tracked or traced. If you do suspect that somebody may be watching you everywhere you go, this is a way to stop that. But also it can protect your electronic devices from events as far as CME and as far as EMP. They actually make a backpack that has different compartments for pretty much everything, cell phone, laptop, all that. And then they also make a duffel bag that everything that you put in that duffel bag will be protected. Not to mention, if you put something in there, there's no signals going in or out. And, no bad things like EMP or CME. So if you want to protect a whole bunch of devices, go for the duffel bag. If you want something that's like a go bag that also has protection for your electronics, that would be the backpack. And if you just want something for your cell phone so you're not getting harmful rays out of it or from it or having anything go in, get their little cell phone holders. All right, and then that's marfooglenews.com/offgrid. So Sam Bankman-Fried, everybody was like, what the hell? Why is this guy not in prison right now? But apparently he was arrested in the Bahamas, expected to request extradition. He finally got arrested. But my predictions on this, and my opinion is not worth much, is that he is so rich, so connected, and donated so much to both sides that he's not going, if anything, he's going to get a slap on the hand, or they're going to come with some loophole and he's going to get out of any kind of jail time, and he's going to have billions, if not millions, if not billions, stacked away somewhere of your money. Dex, he's arrested, but is he going to serve jail time? Is he actually going to be an example? Is he the sacrificial lamb? Like, what the heck?
Well, that's the big question. I wonder what the odds are in the sport, in the betting world on this. But yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, billions were sent, according to Elon and others, to many politicians, mostly on one side, but even on both sides, to specific ones from him. So maybe he prepaid his way out of this. Potentially, there's all sorts of things. I mean, everybody's sort of up in arms on whether or not he'll survive, whether or not he'll get prosecuted, whether or not he'll actually be convicted of something, or whether he'll get, just a slap on the hand, so to speak, and turn back loose. But we'll have to see. We'll have to watch and see what happens here. I mean, he's still in the Bahamas, so a lot could actually happen there. But they're holding him, obviously, specifically because the United States filed the charges against him. So that's why they picked him up, and they're holding him for potential extradition.
I don't know who just caught that. I good eye. Look at the date on this article. Dex, check it out. What the heck? That must be... I don't want to check on the original because it will load up all the pop-ups. Maybe see if that's a thing with...
The original's correct. It's, a lot of times what happens is these sites recycle stuff out of their system, and it's just picking up the wrong date. But if you go to the original, you'll see the correct date on it, which is today's date. Yesterday's date.
Good eye said there's something weird with that. Yeah, so it says December 12th, 2022. But I wonder if they have pages that are already made website-wise. Is that how it works? They can just delete that and paste a new story on that same page so it has the same link or something?
Yeah, they do that a lot. They'll take one story and they'll write it when it first comes out, and then they'll update it over time. And sometimes you can find that if you're looking at the page, it may be updated when you look at the real page, but if you look at the cached or the shared version, or in this case, using other tools to let you see the page in a different format, it's actually cached the older version of it. So this was breaking news when it was first captured. So I imagine a lot of things were wrong with it at first, but yeah.
Wow. Well, we'll see what happens, and we'll follow it, and we'll update you tomorrow if there's any news on it. By the way, thank you, Ian DeBow, for being here. Scrappy Doo, Bones. Hey, Bones is here as well. Make sure to go check out Bones on marfooglenews.com/friends. Same with Ilea. Same with, of course, Trinity, Rip Curl, and then, of course, Lisa R. Hall is just one of my favorite people. David Reed is in the house. What is going on? I hope you and Laura are doing well. And I have, Dex, do you want to go over the web only? We have a lot of stuff down there.
We certainly do. So if you haven't seen the rest of the story before, if this is new to you, pay attention. Don't go anywhere. And for those of you that don't know, you need to hear the updates. So this is the rest of the story. So go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and scroll down to that orange bar that says overflow. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, it's really easy. Just open the description and look for the show notes link. It's right there. Lots going on. There was a ton of updates with Elon. So everything from, they're accusing him of hurting T-Man's potential campaign. They talked about him being booed on stage with Dave Chappelle. They talked about how he's shadow banning the Twitter user that was following his own jet. And now they're talking about how Tesla approval ratings are dropping and dipping into negative territory. And they're talking about that his takeover is actually drawing attention from NASA, which alludes to the fact that it might hurt his SpaceX business. So when you see this many articles about one person at one time and every one of them is negative, it certainly makes me think they're out to get him. They don't like what he's doing. So that makes me pay more attention to what he is doing and why they're doing it. Of course, there's been numerous releases of the Twitter files. You guys have probably heard all about that or seen it. Another journalist has perished at the World Cup. This is the second one now. It's kind of interesting to pay attention to. Don't know many of the details on that. There was a huge mass crossing in Texas that was like 800 people, I think it was. It was a lot all at once. That was hasn't been done in a while. We've seen lots of numbers, but not all at one spot at one time. Some other updates in the news, of course, Sam Bankman is in there, as well as updates on T-Man and the saga that's going on with him and everything around that. And even some stuff about Metaverse and the employees at the book are upset because they think that they're going to lose the business, the overall business, because of so much attention being played on the Metaverse, and it's going to be to their demise. Giuliani and a lot of other stuff is in the news. So there's a whole lot there I haven't covered. So make sure you go check out marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link. It's in the description. On YouTube and Rumble.
We might find out why Mark Zuckerberg, before all this happened, when he first started talking about it, when he first bought Meta or first bought Quest, right? The system it used to be. When he first bought the VR stuff, I said he knows something we don't. And my belief and just my prediction is that it is because VR and AR is something. If you've tried it and you've tried the new stuff, it is freaky how, even though the graphics aren't there to where, it's not like it's real, but it makes your brain think it's real after you've been in it for a minute. It's just what your eyes end up seeing. It starts bringing you in. It sucks you in, and you're like, whoa. And time can pass extremely fast. The first time I tried the Quest, I was like, I didn't realize I was in the thing until it died. It died after like 3 or 4 hours or something. It had the extra battery pack on it. And I realized that it was time just flew. And so that's why trying that technology and realizing how that could turn into something crazy, it is pretty terrifying. When you see the infrastructure they're setting up on digital land and digital advertisements and everything else, I think he's ahead. They're making a big deal out of it. But watch, when it hits, It's not gonna go backwards. It's gonna go forwards. It's just not. People aren't there yet, and that's freaky. By the way, thank you. Carla Max says Sam B didn't EpiPen himself. Yes, that is. We'll see if he has any dinners with the Hillarys. All right, let's see here. Thank you. By the way, we're almost out of time here. Want to point out? Oh, Dave, I got. I went up and I got your Christmas present. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, the O'Reilly Special Edition. My good friend Dave, part of your Christmas gift. Let's see here. Super excited. All right, we're going to be switching over to Marfoogle Jams. Now it is time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. Make sure to go subscribe to that third channel, and the Foogle fam will follow. We'll be heading over there for the chat. Thank you for everyone that's supported, including Kyun Young Yoon 6377. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Appreciate all of you guys. Thank you, and thank you, Bill P. Thank you for your great content. I'll get an early Merry Christmas into you all. Stephen McMahon and Tristan Early, time for Nasara, Kathleen Sims, and Traveler, Nana of Montana. Thank you. I hope you watched the replay. Appreciate all of you guys. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marv out. It's time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
Surface walking round as the rich are underground. On the surface walking round as the rich are underground.